Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. British Columbians watch and wait as their loved ones remain trapped.
My eldest brother, sister-in-law, nephew, his wife, and one-year-old baby are still under the rubble.
The devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria, tragedy on a horrifying scale. Also, what's dragging the 2023 housing market in this province and when experts think a rebound is coming. Plus, residents of a Vancouver building begging for help.
Tenants who are disabled are dragging themselves down these stairs.
Why demands to fix a broken elevator are not being answered.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. Many British Columbians with ties to Turkey and Syria are waiting for word on their loved ones tonight. More than 3,800 people are dead after a magnitude 7.8 earthquake tore through the region in the early morning hours. We begin on the ground with Briar Stewart and the search for survivors.
You can hear the power of that initial tremor. A magnitude 7.8 earthquake centered near the border between Turkey and Syria. It hit as people were sleeping, totally vulnerable. Then came the aftershocks, and hours later, a second major jolt. As building after building collapsed, people ran for their lives. In Malatya, Turkey, this one came down as rescuers were searching a nearby pile of rubble. A reporter there capturing the panic and fear on the faces of those fleeing. In the city of Diyarbakir, rescuers looked on as another came down. Thousands of buildings have fallen in Turkey alone. This man says he was in one. His wife trapped under him and unresponsive. He got out. Now he waits, trying not to lose hope. Rescuing her and countless others, the urgent mission. The search is made so difficult by piles of cement and debris. Cranes help where they can, dogs too. It's tedious, careful, desperate work. Bodies are uncovered, but so are survivors. Those brief moments of celebration, full of overwhelming relief. Searches like those are also happening across the border in Syria. Saw, hammers, bare hands, people doing what they can to move these mountains of debris. Here there's both government-held and opposition-held territory, already devastated by war and a refugee crisis. Now, new pain. This father is mourning his newborn killed in a collapse. Those who survived are being treated in overwhelmed hospitals. The opposition emergency organization, White Helmets, says aid is desperately needed.
Northwest Syria now, it's a disaster area. We need help from everyone to save our people.
Now, a day after that first quake, the scale of the destruction is becoming clear. Tens of thousands now homeless in both countries try and find warmth and safety where they can. The cold weather is making the conditions on the ground even more miserable for the rescue crews working through the night and for people seeking shelter. Many are staying at shopping centers and mosques, either because they don't have a home to go back to or they're too frightened to spend the night inside. The government has declared 7 days of national mourning in Turkey. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Istanbul.
Now, many British Columbians have family in that region and they have been affected. Tonight, Yasmin Renea is speaking with one Vancouver woman who lost someone in the earthquake, and she's desperately hoping her other loved ones still trapped in the rubble can make it out alive.
It's been a painful day for many British Columbians watching and waiting.
This is probably the biggest tragedy my family has had.
Vancouver's Nural Sumbul Tepe's brother-in-law died in the earthquake. He was in Iskenderun, a Turkish city near the border with Syria. She says 5 of her family members, including her brother and her nephew's 1-year-old baby, are still trapped under the rubble after their apartment building collapsed.
And unfortunately, there's no rescue teams near them. There's power outages and cell phones are not charged.
Sumbul Tepe's family in Austria and Vienna are desperately trying to get to the region, but airports in Iskenderun have been severely damaged. She hopes rescue teams can get to the area by sea. Canada is among many countries offering to send help, but the details are still being worked out.
It all depends on what the needs will be, and this is how we work together. That's what Canada will provide. We'll be talking with our international partners as well and colleagues to look at what they will be providing support, and then this way we'll look at what we can provide.
Turkey's ambassador to Canada says what's needed most on the ground right now is search and rescue resources as well as emergency medical help. Turkey has deployed some 2,800 search and rescue teams as authorities fear the death toll will keep climbing. The Turkish-Canadian Society says people here can also help.
There will be, of course, need for equipments and material things, but also there will be need for money in the long run.
EDR says support will be needed for the months ahead as communities try to recover from the death and devastation. Yasmin Ghaneya, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our Johanna Wagstaffe is also a seismologist. And Joe, we've seen 2 major earthquakes plus aftershocks. Can you help us to understand how these quakes are connected and how much more shaking people might be facing?
Well, first of all, Anita, unfortunately, more shaking likely in the days and weeks, if not months to come. This is a look at all of the earthquakes greater than magnitude 4 since the first magnitude 7.8 struck about 24 hours ago. And you can see all these aftershocks lining up on a stretch of about 120 kilometers. That's the length of the section of rock or the fault line that actually ruptured, and it triggered a second large earthquake on a neighboring fault line. So you can almost see those 2 separate fault lines. So we have 2 different sequences of aftershocks, and I expect that we will see aftershocks as great as magnitude 6 in the next couple of days. They'll diminish in size and frequency over the course of weeks, but unfortunately triggering more damage and definitely more fear for those on the ground.
Yeah, fear for sure. Just devastating. Johanna Wagstaffe, thank you.
You're welcome.
A coroner's report looking into the death of a BC COVID denier and conspiracy theorist has found that he died from illicit drug use. Mac Parhar died in November of 2021 at his home in New Westminster at the age of 48. At the time, there were rumors that he died from COVID. Now, the coroner's report said he did test positive for COVID at the time of his death, but that was not the cause. Parhar had been in the news for spreading COVID falsehoods and operating his yoga studio against public health orders. A warning, this next story contains some details that people may find distressing. An actor who appeared in Dances with the Wolves has now been charged with sex crimes in BC and Nevada. 46-year-old Nathan Chasing Horse appeared in a Las Vegas courtroom today. A criminal complaint says he's charged with 8 counts, including sex trafficking and child abuse, among others. He's accused of abusing Indigenous girls and women for 2 decades in several states. And Mounties in BC say Chasing Horse is charged with 1 count of sexual assault in this province after a report was made to the RCMP in Keremeos. He'll stay in jail until another hearing on Wednesday. There's been yet another SRO fire on the downtown east side. It comes after a particularly bad 2022, and last week, City Council approved spending to identify the fire risks at SROs to prevent more in the future. This fire was put out quickly, and nobody has been reported missing, according to Vancouver Fire Rescue.
Crews came on scene and had heavy smoke coming from the second-story building. Fire was located on the 2nd floor in the washing area.
No additional details have been released at this point. Well, an elevator at a downtown Eastside SRO has been broken for months, and residents say they're fed up. The building has ties to Vancouver Coastal Health, and many of the people who live there are disabled. As John Hernandez reports, crowds protested outside the building manager's office today, demanding an immediate fix.
It feels like they don't really care about the tenants in the building much.
75-year-old Rick Pelagier has 2 bad discs in his back, and his ribs aren't much better. It takes him a half hour to make his way up the 8 flights of stairs to his room at the Portland Hotel.
I try not to go up and down too often, but usually I have to go to doctor's appointments and stuff like that. Maybe 3 times a day, so that's a cure.
The elevator has had problems for 8 months, and residents say it's rarely worked since September. Many here are disabled.
It's so hard to get up and down. I gotta wait for some staff member to show up at work, if they show up, to help me get up or get my wheelchair up.
Tenants who are disabled are dragging themselves down these stairs to be able to get outside, or they're stuck in their rooms. Many tenants in this building have been stuck in their rooms for months on end.
Dozens of them marched to the office doors of PHS Community Services Society, the nonprofit that runs the building, demanding it gets replaced.
These elevators have a lifespan of 20 to 25 years. This is known to everybody. We are at the end of this elevator's lifespan. This could have been dealt with in advance so that we don't have to be out in the streets.
This is not something we would ever sit on. We literally have experts working on this day and night as is.
PHS staff and the Ministry of Housing say repairs are on the way, but will take time.
We were projecting that the parts that were needed would be available for us by April because of supply chain issues that we had. We were able to get some parts much faster.
In the meantime, officials say people with significant mobility challenges have been offered alternative places to stay, a not so satisfying solution for these residents who will continue to make the daily climb. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
After plenty of community outcry, the society behind the struggling Vancouver Folk Festival has paused its plan to vote on whether it should be dissolved.
But we've also been in conversations with other partners and our funders, and we think that what has changed is we actually do see a way that we can translate this support into actual financial support.
That's Hemming there talking to our Gloria Makarenko. The society has been under pressure with mounting financial problems. The 3-day event has been a fixture in the city's arts and culture scene for nearly 45 years. The society's president says the board has had a change of heart after hearing from the public, partners, and other festivals. It's unclear whether they've been able to secure funds for the event, but that it was launching a fundraiser and volunteer drive as a result of the public's support. We're getting a clearer picture of exactly how Vancouver Coastal Health would spend a mental health grant from the city. Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim has proposed a $2.8 million grant to beef up support for those who are struggling. As Joel Ballard reports, the majority of the funding will be spent on creating a non-police involved mental health response team.
The multi-million-dollar grant would be the first installment of what Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim hopes will become an annual grant, aimed at bolstering the city's frontline mental health and public safety response, and it will be split between 4 different initiatives. The CAR 8788 program, which pairs Vancouver police officers with a registered nurse or psychiatric nurse. The Assertive Outreach Team, they work with adults who recently suffered a mental health crisis and help connect them with community services. A new non-police program, where a team of mental health workers respond to someone whose mental health is deteriorating and helps de-escalate the situation. And finally, strengthening Indigenous mental health support.
At the end of the day, what we have is a health crisis and a mental health crisis on our hands, and so we need to respond with health services.
So here's exactly how the $2.8 million would be spent. The police and Vancouver Coastal Health Partnership programs will hire 14 new full-time employees. That's split between the CAR 8788 program and the Assertive Outreach Team. The new non-police de-escalation team will receive the crux of the funding, hiring 32 new staff, and the Indigenous programming will hire 12 new employees. In the past, there has been a lot of criticism around whether police officers are suited to respond to mental health emergencies, especially considering the fatal outcomes of past calls. Something Dominato says the new plan takes into account.
I think we're trying to be responsive to what we've heard from the public, is that we need a continuum of response services. And so in this instance, there are some areas and incidents where we don't need to have police, and what we need is someone who is very skilled in de-escalation and talking that person down and getting them connected to health services.
Now, none of this has been approved yet. It goes before council on February 14th. And if it gets the green light, hiring will begin in the spring and continue through the end of the year. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Canada is broadening its criteria for Hong Kong residents to apply to work in Canada through a temporary permit program to help address the labor shortage.
Reality is we cannot fill the needs of the economy with a domestic labor force, even if we put immense resources into training and do more to bring people into the economy who've historically been marginalized. We need to continue to recruit workers internationally if we're going to maximize our economic success and allow many businesses who've struggled over the course of the pandemic to continue to remain open by giving them access to the labor that they need so they can sustain not only the bottom line of those businesses, but protect the jobs of the people who work for those businesses today.
Under the new Hong Kong open work permit policy, eligibility is for people who have graduated from a post-secondary institution within the past 10 years. Previously, it was in the past 5 years. They can work in Canada for up to 3 years. Their partners and children are also eligible to apply to study or work in the country. The deadline for applications has now been extended to February of 2025. And local BC advocates have long been pushing for more supports for Hong Kongers wanting to live and work in Canada. They are reacting to this news by the federal government. One of those advocates, Mabel Tung, shared her story with our Zara Premji.
When I look back in some of the picture, I still want to go back, but I cannot.
Mabel Tung says speaking up against the political unrest in Hong Kong over the last few decades has meant she cannot return to her former home. But she's happy to see change has come in her lifetime that will help those looking to live and work here in Canada.
It's a win-win situation for both because Hong Kong needs a safe place to stay and Canadian needs the labor.
Tung says she wanted to speak on behalf of many Hong Kong students in BC because of the safety concerns they have for their families back home if they speak up about being happy with this announcement.
Hong Kong right now is completely upside down.
As far as next steps, advocates say they would like to see further allowances from the federal government for students and anyone else seeking safety and seeking a job or education here in British Columbia.
Hopefully they can extend more years until 2026. So that is our wish list.
And she says the advocating won't stop as they try to fight for more help like this from the Canadian government. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe is back with us. Joe, a soggy one today, and I think there's more to come, isn't there?
There is more to come, yes. Do not let this break in the rain lull you into a false sense of anything. The next burst is just crossing the strait right now, and that's why we have the rainfall warnings in place for parts of Metro Vancouver and Howe Sound. It's really northern sections that will see the 50 to 70 millimeters overnight tonight and through tomorrow. And then all of this moisture bringing snow and winds to the northeast and Kootenay Pass. We're also looking to see 20 to 30 centimeters of snow really kicking in tomorrow morning through the afternoon. So here's that fire hose, so to speak, of moisture, bringing in that subtropical air and those temperatures that'll sort of hover a couple of degrees above seasonal for the next 24 hours. We actually hit 11 at Victoria, double digits across parts of Metro Vancouver. So zooming in, here's that burst on the radar that's just about to cross the strait. Some heavier bands embedded in there in yellow. And as this system swings through tomorrow afternoon, so tomorrow morning, pretty heavy showers for Metro Vancouver. Behind it, gusty westerly winds across the south coast, and the chance of a thunderstorm. But we may see some sunny breaks in there as well. So basically tomorrow, everything. We've got rain, we've got clearing skies and winds, we've got sunshine and thunderstorms, and we've got mountain snow. So just pick what you're interested in, and we've got it on the Tuesday platter.
Yeah, that really is everything.
Yeah.
Joe, thanks.
You're welcome.
The BC government has unveiled its priorities for the next several months in its throne speech. Premier David Eby is away in Ottawa for healthcare talks between premiers and the Prime Minister. But as Mayor Baines tells us, the speech signaled an urgency from the province on issues like affordable housing, healthcare, and public safety.
Tradition and ceremony kicked off the throne speech at the BC Legislature.
The future is bright here in BC, and your government shares people's sense of optimism about our endless potential.
There was an unusual twist with the province's premier away in Ottawa for a meeting with premiers and the Prime Minister. David Eby and his counterparts are negotiating a deal for more healthcare funding from the federal government.
For British Columbia, what we're looking for is a federal partner that's there for us on the core healthcare system, but we also are looking at expansions of the healthcare system, especially around mental health and addiction, around our home care, supporting seniors.
Of course, healthcare is just one of the government's priorities. Other highlights include, under the cost of living, new targeted measures to support people hardest hit by rising costs, including low-income earners and families with children. For housing, action against real estate speculators, increasing homes and services near transit hubs across BC. Under healthcare, strengthening access to public healthcare by investing in new hospitals and a new medical school, better substance treatment and recovery services, better cancer care to reduce wait times, and supporting internationally trained health professionals into BC clinics. Under public safety, getting violent offenders off the streets, and new laws to crack down on gangs, money laundering, and on malicious non-consensual sharing of intimate images. And under climate change, expanding low-cost clean energy solutions and a new job skills plan. And under equity, a new law on pay transparency, addressing equal work for women. And under reconciliation, an Indigenous rights-based partnership approach. David Eby's new cabinet has 18 months until the next scheduled election to make headway.
We hear concerns from people that they need more supports. They've made it clear that they want to ensure that healthcare should be available when they need it, their communities should be safer, they need affordable housing.
The opposition BC Liberals have their own plans.
We're also going to start laying out our vision for the future of British Columbia.
Opposition leader Kevin Falcon criticized the government for not spending on mental health and addictions treatment services and predicts the government's current plans for the surplus will not end well.
This government is going to try and spend over $5 billion essentially in a 90-day period and have it all spent by March 31st. I would argue that's very irresponsible. You can see that by the announcements they've made that have no detail.
The BC Greens say there needs to be a data-centered approach to measuring the effectiveness of the government's policies.
There's really a lot of announcements, a lot of saying we're going to put money here and put money there, but no indication of how do we know if this is successful.
The province's budget will be tabled later this month. There will be scrutiny around how the government balances an upcoming economic slowdown with its ambitious plans going forward. Mayor Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
Renters and homeowners are facing more stress than ever. So what's being predicted for BC's real estate market and what experts hope will be done to help people get through it, coming up. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Do you have an interest in collecting movie memorabilia from productions completed in Canada? That is very specific, I realize that. You know, you could get a cocaine smuggling bear and objects from a zombie apocalypse. Those are just a few of the items that are gracing the shelves of a Calgary warehouse that's saving movie magic from the landfill.
This fella will be famous on the 15th of January. Hi, my name is Ian McAteer and I'm one of the owners here at Adanac Liquidation. We partner with 3 production companies here in Alberta and we are asked to go in at the end of a TV show or a movie set and acquire the contents of that show. We either bring it to auction or bring it back here to our store in Okotoks and sell it to the public. So this is our first ever movie prop that we got here in Adanac. So we call him Freddy the Friendly Bear, but his name in real life is Pablo Escobar. We can inflate and deflate his lungs. So on the TV show, they tranquilized him. He was caught smuggling cocaine across the border into the United States. Until we're asked to go into a TV show, we don't actually know what we're going to have. So it could be a wardrobe sale, it could be a vehicle sale, it could be all of the props that were used in home scenes. You never really know. These mortuary buckets, they were used in a mortuary scene for a couple of dead people in another TV show that we did. It's a bit of a crapshoot for us as to what we get or what we're asked to clear. But again, that's half of the fun and half of the enjoyment from our point of view. You know, what will we get our hands on next? So this fella here is a prop that we picked up just before Christmas. The TV show that he's involved in will be aired in January this year. I'm not trying to hide the name of the show, but we have signed a deal where we don't mention the TV show until it's on air. We got into it back in BC. About 3 years ago, we got a call from a production house in BC to ask whether we knew anyone doing a similar service in Alberta. And then COVID happened and we took a chance and we came here. And in June 2021, we did our first production here in Alberta. We never go to landfill with anything, so that's one of the niches that we have with the production houses that we have. Each show is different, each crew is different, but we make sure that everything that is used in a production finds a home. The trick then for us is to find that home as quick as we can. 2023, we expect to be an extremely busy year, as 2022 was. There are about 6 or 7 productions here at the moment in Alberta that are in storage, potentially to be called back for a further season or shows. Not all of those will get the green light to go ahead for another season, so we're expected to be quite busy from the tail end of January onwards for 2023.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you.
See you in January.
Please, yeah, absolutely.
The province's real estate market is expected to continue to cool down this year, according to the BC Real Estate Association. This follows the trend of fewer sales through last spring and summer. They blame a slowing economy and elevated mortgage rates for the slowdown. Sales this year are expected to go down 7% compared to last year. The association is optimistic there will be a strong rebound next year. To weigh in on all of this, we are joined live tonight by Brian Yu, Chief Economist with Central One Credit Union. Brian, we've heard from so many British Columbians who are struggling. You know, it's renters who can't keep up with the increased costs. It's homeowners who are facing elevated mortgage rates. What do you make right now of the state of housing in BC?
Yeah, there's clearly a significant affordability challenge, regardless of whether you're looking to get into the market as a home buyer due to the higher mortgage rates, as well as renters who are facing severe challenges of finding accommodations, but also just getting into the market due to the high levels of rent and growth in rents.
We saw earlier in our show today's BC Throne speech placing a strong emphasis on housing supports. What specific piece of legislation do you think needs to be introduced to ease the pressure here?
Well, I think there's a number of factors here when we're thinking about housing. There's no single factor. What we're looking for is either ultimately you do need a lot more supply in the market, and that's really highlighted by the fact that we do see in areas like Vancouver sub 1% vacancy rates. You're seeing people who are moving facing anywhere from 10 to 20% increases in potential rent as due to turnover. So clearly it's a supply issue. On the short end, and in terms of short term, there's always going to be some policies that can tackle, whether it being areas around increased subsidies for lower income individuals. But again, ultimately, we still need to have more supply in the market in order to facilitate.
How far along do you feel like we are in that supply chase? I mean, the province did introduce some changes to permitting in hopes of helping with that, but where do we sit right now?
Well, I think it's clearly the case that we are quite a long ways from getting anywhere near a more normal market. We do see a lot of immigrants coming into the region or into the region for the next couple of years. That's going to put more pressure on overall rents as well as vacancy rates. On the home ownership market, there is some probably move here that as interest rates start to move down a little bit into 2024, that we'll see some alleviation in some of the pressures facing some home buyers as well.
The Real Estate Association is forecasting a decline in prices this year. We've been waiting for that basically since sales have been dropping. But with interest rates so high, will a decline actually make any difference for those looking to buy? Or will it simply just be too expensive because the mortgages will be so much?
Well, currently, I think it's been clearly that the mortgage rates have more than offset any type of gains from the declines in prices. We've seen prices decline about 15% from peak now, but we're still 20% more than where we were pre-pandemic. And again, mortgage rates are much higher. So for a lot of individuals, they aren't able to get to the market. They are finding homeownership much too unaffordable, and that's going to continue until we move through, I think, into 2020. Into 2024, we see some decline in pricing coming in probably into mid-year, but there's a lot of sellers out there who are just biding their time. They're waiting out this market, it seems, as they expect over time that, again, rates are going to come down and they'll be able to get their higher price for their home.
Brian Yu with Central One Credit Union joining us live tonight. Thank you.
I've seen guys take their pants off to try on jeans.
Canada's biggest thrift stores have gotten rid of their changing rooms. We will tell you why after the break.
Good evening. It struck in the hours before dawn as the people of Turkey slept. An earthquake lasting just 45 seconds, but they were seconds of unbelievable terror and destruction. The quake was centered in the country's northwest, near Izmit. Experts say it had a magnitude of 7.8, rumbling just 10 kilometers below the surface. Hundreds of aftershocks followed, and in the aftermath, the numbers are staggering. At least 2,000 people dead, 11,000 injured, as many as 10,000 more still missing. Tonight, the search for survivors goes on in Turkey, as does the search for food, water, and shelter. CBC's Dawn Murray is there.
The brutality of this blow, this massive trembling of the earth, created havoc, created panic. We were all asleep when it struck, this woman says. It was terrible. We were running in a panic. It was like coming face to face with death. Seen from the air, whole neighborhoods lay flattened as if battered by a giant fist. In other areas, seemingly spared by a whim of fate, some buildings still stood while their neighbors were reduced to rubble. 4 spans of a bridge of a major highway collapsed, crushing a bus in their destructive vice. A major oil refinery was set on fire by the earthquake and burned throughout the day. In the capital Ankara, a residential building still stood, its flank ripped open, leaving an ugly concrete wound. The devastation touched many cities in Turkey, and in almost all there were scenes of drama as rescuers struggled in the ruins to find the living and pull them out. For some survivors, the magnitude of the tragedy seemed too much to accept. Everyone died, he said. Everyone is dead. No one is alive. Oh my God. Throughout the day, the country mobilized. Soldiers and civilians joined the rescue teams. Stadiums became temporary shelters for the injured and for those in shock. And in cities around the country, people lined up to give blood. Tonight, rescue efforts continued to try to find and save thousands trapped in the rubble where last night they slept. And tonight, tens of thousands of others who escaped will not be returning to their homes. They have taken refuge outside, still fearing the danger of aftershocks and of buildings possibly fatally weakened by the assault from the earth itself. Dawn Murray, CBC News, Istanbul.
Although most COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted, two of Canada's largest thrift store chains are keeping their change rooms closed. And as Sophia Harris tells us, that's upsetting some shoppers who say the policy is unfair and inconvenient.
It's trending on TikTok. Shoppers stuck trying on clothes in the aisles of Value Village.
Help me!
Instead of reopening its change rooms post-pandemic, Value Village has removed them from its 150 thrift stores across Canada. The Salvation Army has also nixed fitting rooms at its 98 thrift stores. At this Vancouver Value Village, some shoppers vented their frustrations.
It can get sketchy in there. Like, I've seen guys take their pants off to try on jeans. It's like, I really miss the change rooms.
You can't guarantee it's going to fit when you buy it.
Both the Salvation Army and Value Village offer exchange only. So if an item doesn't fit,
they don't give you your money back. So you have to exchange it for something and maybe there's nothing in the store at that time. So I don't like that policy.
It's not fair.
This anti-poverty activist says the absence of change rooms could wind up costing shoppers already on a tight budget.
They're saying, okay, if it doesn't fit, whatever, return it, we'll give you store credit. But for some people, it's not convenient and they don't bother going back.
The Salvation Army, a non-profit, told CBC News it axed its fitting rooms to make room for more merchandise and to address staffing shortages and increase theft. For-profit Value Village said it also made the move to offer more merchandise and to focus on safety and cleanliness.
I really like this sweater.
But secondhand shoppers can still disrobe in private at Goodwill. The nonprofit thrift store chain reopened its change rooms this past July.
It's a part of the service that we offer. So leaving our change rooms open and manned and cleaned is part of our service.
The Salvation Army and Value Village say they've made concessions by allowing customers up to 2 weeks to exchange unwanted items and by adding more mirrors in stores. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
Tomorrow, Justin Trudeau will lay out a 10-year healthcare funding plan for provinces and territories. David Cochrane takes us through what some premiers are expecting and what they're wary of.
The premiers arrive in Ottawa for a meeting 2 years in the making and use the lobby of a downtown hotel to lobby the Prime Minister.
We know what are our priorities. We know how to invest the money. We don't need the federal government to tell us how to invest the money.
We haven't seen any details yet. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic.
What we're looking for is a federal partner that's there for us on the core healthcare system.
For the Prime Minister to want to come to the table, I think that is reason for optimism. So I think that's why you're probably seeing an optimistic tone from all the premiers.
That optimism will be met with cash.
We will be there putting more money on the table.
Sources tell CBC News the Prime Minister will propose a 10-year plan with billions of new dollars starting in the next budget, including a top-up for the planned increase in the Canada Health Transfer and extra funding for bilateral agreements to help provinces and territories deal with their specific needs.
This is going to be work that we're going to continue doing over the coming weeks.
I don't think any of us expect a deal to be made tomorrow. I think the Prime Minister himself has said that he doesn't expect that either.
No deal because at this point there is no hard information. The premiers won't see the federal plan until the meeting on Tuesday.
I would have liked to have seen the proposal ahead of time, there's no question.
The lack of clarity frustrating for some, the federal effort encouraging to others.
There's no obligation to negotiate, and that's been the posture of previous governments, but I think it's certainly a good sign, a good gesture of goodwill that the Prime Minister is open to having this meeting in the first place.
The meeting will be short, just 2 hours, for the Prime Minister to lay out a 10-year plan and try to win the support of all 13 premiers. David Cochrane, CBC News, Ottawa.
In Hong Kong, the trial is underway for 47 democracy advocates. They were arrested in 2021 under a sweeping national security law imposed by China's government in Beijing. Hundreds of protesters, including family members of some of the accused, marched and chanted outside the courthouse. The activists are charged with conspiracy to commit subversion. Several of them had arranged an informal election. It was an effort to find more candidates for Hong Kong's Beijing-controlled government. At least 8 of the accused are facing up to life in prison if they're convicted. The mass trial is expected to take 90 days.
The laws that they have on the books, they don't force them, period.
Coming up next, a CBC investigation goes undercover to find out how car dealerships could be ripping you off. What you should know before you go shopping for a vehicle.
The devastating earthquakes in Turkey and Syria is impacting people here in BC with ties to those countries. Nural Sumboltepe moved to Vancouver from Iskenderun in southern Turkey in 2005. And like so many people, the tragedy has touched her family today. And we're very grateful to Nural for joining us this afternoon. Hello, Nural.
Hi, Michelle.
I'm very sorry that we are speaking with you under these very difficult circumstances. Can you tell me how you came to learn about the earthquake?
A family member posted it on WhatsApp. That's how I found out about it.
What have you learned about the earthquake and what effect it has had on your family in Turkey?
Well, this is a tragedy of a huge magnitude for my country, Turkey, but also my own family. This is probably the biggest tragedy my family has had. I have a lot of family members living in my hometown, Iskenderun, and my brother-in-law was confirmed dead, and my eldest brother, sister-in-law, nephew, his wife, and 1-year-old baby are still under the rubble. An 11-story building collapsed. There was an earthquake, and then there were, I think, 2 consecutive aftershocks. And so the entire building has been reduced to rubble. In my hometown is severely damaged. The 2 airports are severely damaged, and the roads are not in great condition, so it's hard to reach to get to my hometown right now. But my hometown is on the sea, on the Mediterranean, so and it can be reached by sea if the rescue teams, I'm sure, can reach by sea, if not by air.
I know you wanted to speak to be able to share your perspective today. Is there anything else you would like to say and share with listeners?
No. I don't know what to do except to be on CBC right now and ask for Canadian rescue teams to also try their best to go there to help.
I will leave it there, Nural. I know this is such a difficult time for you, and I can only offer my condolences. And I thank you for sharing your story so people better understand the impact of this disaster. I hope you have support as you go through this very difficult time. Okay.
I do. Thank you, Michelle.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Italian city that's famous for its canals has launched pre-Carnival celebrations with its traditional boat parade. Hundreds of brightly decorated boats carried costumed characters along Venice's Grand Canal. The city's Carnival, which dates back to the 11th century, returned in all its splendor this year now that the pandemic restrictions have been dropped. The historic event officially starts on Saturday. The 2 weeks of revelry continue until the start of Lent, which is a traditional Christian period of fasting prior to Easter. Well, it doesn't look like there's rain for them, but there is a lot of rain for us. So is there an end to that at all?
We do have an end in sight, Anita. But yeah, I have some questions about rat boat. I'd like to know more details about the giant rat.
I didn't see it.
It was an interesting one.
I was too busy reading.
Yeah, the rain will clear up for us tomorrow afternoon, but we still have a lot to get through, Anita, through the overnight and through tomorrow morning. Wanted to show you the big picture, current temperatures across the country. 8 right now in Vancouver, so fairly mild with that southwesterly flow. We had that big deep freeze I'm sure you all heard about from friends in Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. Late last week. Things are slowly recovering, still hanging on to some cold air tonight in Quebec, -10, and through Montreal without the wind chill. So we've got this warm southwesterly flow, and we've got that second punch of moisture coming in the next couple of hours. It's crossing the strait. This whole system, though, is moving west to east, and that's why we're seeing snow across the mountain passes, a good amount of snow for our coastal ranges, and we've got that snowfall warning for the northeast. We'll see a lot of snow in through the Rockies as well. So the whole province getting some high elevation snow over the next 24 hours. Wednesday does look like a bit of a break between systems before the next one brings some showers. For the second half of the week, there's that next low pressure system, again, bringing more snow levels across the province, sort of 1,200 to 1,400 meters over the next couple of systems. Okay, timing things out for Metro Vancouver. Here's 11 p.m. tonight, and look for the darker greens. We're really seeing them in the yellows across northern sections of Metro Vancouver. That's where we're under the rainfall warning. Through to tomorrow afternoon, notice we start to get some breaks. We'll get behind that system. It'll be breezy. It'll be one of those afternoons where we see the dramatic clouds moving fast. We'll see some cumulus building, some blue sky breaks, maybe a thunderstorm. It'll be a nice drama afternoon in the sky after we get through that morning atmospheric river. One of my favorite kinds of afternoons when we're behind the cold front. So that's tomorrow. Sunshine for Wednesday. Not an all blue sky day, but I do think we'll see some breaks, and it is mainly dry. There's that next system moving in. Notice our afternoon high is fairly mild. This is sort of a degree above our seasonal, but we are slowly warming up as we get a couple minutes plus of daylight every day. Steadier rain for the end of the week. Still hoping we see some sunshine in one of the 2 days. Couple more systems for early next week. Still very much in wet season, Anita.
Well, as long as the drama stays in the skies and out of our lives, then that's fine.
I'll keep an eye on those thunderstorms.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, in consumer news, a CBC News investigation using a secret shopper found an Edmonton car dealership was breaking the law. It's something an insider says is routine. Now an advocate is calling for better consumer protections. The CBC's Erica Johnson has this Go Public report.
We're going to hit you with winterization, we're going to hit you with the admin fee, we're going to hit you with 3M.
This car salesman is lifting the curtain on sales practices he says rip off customers.
Almost like $10,000 difference to what we advertise online.
Until recently, he worked at this Kia dealership, says the owner told his sales team to ignore the law. Alberta has what's called all-in pricing legislation. A number of other provinces have it too, or similar. When a dealership advertises a car, the price must include all fees and charges, except for taxes and any financing costs. So, how many customers get that all-in price?
Zero. Not one customer. So if a customer says, hey, I don't want to pay for this stuff, we tell them in their face bluntly, well, we're not selling the car to you.
Go Public put it to the test. We sent a secret shopper in to supposedly buy this Kia car, advertised on the dealership's website for $29,000. He's told he also has to pay for paint protection, tire and rim warranties, rubber mats, and other items.
You're going to be faced with this everywhere that you go. So, legitimate ads.
Mandatory add-ons that boost the advertised price by more than $8,000.
It's not okay to force somebody to pay an extra $8,000. What they're doing, it's illegal.
This auto expert blames the regulators, says even in clear cases where dealerships have broken the rules, they don't crack down.
The laws that they have on the books, they don't force them, period. And the dealers know that.
In the past fiscal year, just 2 Alberta dealerships have had to pay back $4,000 total to customers who were overcharged. A spokesperson for the regulator said educating dealerships about the law is key. The owner of Kia West Edmonton, Amadeo Palazzo, declined an interview request, saying in a statement his dealership follows the rules. Kia Canada said it's concerned about our secret shopper findings, has contacted the dealer, but says any more detail is confidential. Meantime, the dealership has removed all advertised pricing of new cars from its website. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Breaking the record for the most Grammy wins of all time.
Well, you might call it a coronation for Queen Bey. Yes, Beyonce broke a big record at last night's Grammy Awards in LA. Eli Glasner will have more on music's biggest night right after the break.
Merak etme güzelim, her şeyin bir çözümü var.
The Emery family has been glued to the television since last night, hoping for good news.
It hasn't ended yet, so it was a major earthquake in Turkey. All our families has been affected, so we're here to support each other.
Well, it's very sad, so you want to try to be with your family members, with your relatives, but you cannot help.
The death toll keeps climbing, more than 3,400 deaths across 10 Turkish provinces and northern Syria. Songül Bozat Emery lost her niece and nephew. The rest of her family members, including her mother, sister, and other nephew, are injured.
Because their house all collapsed, and they lost their homes. They have no home right now, and they're in desperate situation.
Songül says it's been hard to stay in contact with her remaining family members. The country is experiencing power issues, and people are trying to save whatever battery they have left on their cell phones.
Nobody's providing any help, and they are on their own. So I'm really hoping that some of the help can reach to my family.
Right now, they're stranded outside in the cold, waiting.
And they ask us to help him, but what we can do, we are here, and they there.
Muhammed Koja is a Syrian refugee who also lived in Turkey. He's seeing videos of Kahramanmaraş, where his family lives, collapsing into smoke. He feels helpless.
Yeah, we're trying to find anyone just to ask him about all the people there. We're trying who has an internet or who has a charger in his phone now too, because nobody there.
Koja managed to check on his family. They're alive and waiting for help, but all he can do right now is send prayers.
Well, we're watching, trying to hear good news, and hopefully we'll get some help.
Both families are looking for ways to help. The Emerys have already started to fundraise for their families who live closest to the disaster area. Joanne Roberts, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Last night's Grammy Awards in Los Angeles hosted the who's who of the music industry, smashing records, breaking new ground, and honoring the roots of today's music scene. Eli Glasner is here to break it all down for us. And Eli, let's start with how history was made.
That's right. So, Anita, I mean, we had a number of record-breaking moments and historic moments, but let's begin with the Best Pop Duo Award, which saw Sam Smith and Kim Petras winning for the song Unholy. You may have heard Tom Power talking with Sam Smith about how that song has really kind of helped bring them to an entirely new audience, an amazing pairing between Sam and Kim, and just kind of the more vulnerability and I think authenticity that we're seeing from Sam Smith right now, and an evolution from, if you remember, when they were more of kind of a crooner in Suits. So you had this amazing performance, but also that award where, when it came to that, they gave the mic to Kim for good reason. Let's take a look.
Sam graciously wanted me to accept this award because I'm the first transgender woman to win this award. and I'm so...
And she dedicated that award to a trans musician that she had lost named Sophie, and also Madonna, because of her legendary connection to the LGBTQ community. Now, moving on, I think a big part, Anita, of the show was the Beyonce waiting game. We knew, because she was already nominated for so many awards and already going into the show, she had already won 2 awards, so she was just getting ready to tie the record for the most Grammy Awards handed out to a single artist. That happened when she was given the award for Best R&B Song for Cuff It. Now, at that point, we were told Beyonce, you know, the queen bee and queen of just kind of musical perfection, was somehow still stuck in traffic, so she wasn't there to accept that first award. It was her producer Dream that accepted it at the podium, but then it came the category for Best Dance Album, and here finally was that moment for Beyonce. And, you know, after all the love for this new album and all of the attention, it's, I think, remarkable just how humble she seemed in the moment. Take a look. Here's Beyonce making history.
Thank you so much. I'm trying not to be too emotional. And I'm trying to just receive this night. I'd like to thank the queer community for your love and for inventing this genre. God bless you. Thank you so much to the Grammys.
There you go. Her 32nd Grammy Award, a historic event. You see your husband, Jay-Z, looking on there.
Yeah, he looked proud for sure. Any big surprises, Eli? Because we know there are usually some good ones with big award shows like this.
There were a number. I mean, you look at Song of the Year, and the song that won was a song by Bonnie Raitt, actually covering a song by Canadians. But that, of all the songs that were nominated, was the least streamed. You could see the shock in Bonnie Raitt's face. But I want to show you another surprise, and that was Lizzo winning for Best Record. I mean, you look, she was beating out Adele, Beyonce, Harry Styles, and more. But a beautiful moment for Lizzo. I just love the positivity of her music. She was saying that she was inspired by the one and only Prince, that she was going to make positive music. She had this amazing performance of It's About That Time and Special with a gospel choir. But then on stage, and this shows you just the ripple effect of Beyonce, Lizzo took time out to pay tribute to Beyonce like this.
Where are you at, Beyonce? My eyes are wet. You changed my life. You sang that gospel medley, and the way you made me feel, I was like, I want to make people feel this way with my music. So thank you so much. You clearly are the artist of our lives.
There you go. So finally, it came down to the big award at the Grammys that is considered Best Album of the Year. And I'm sorry to say this is an award that Beyonce has lost before to Taylor Swift, to Beck, and to Adele. There was the Beyonce Beehive getting ready to have their queen get her big win. But again, it was not to be. It was Harry Styles, but a nice little kind of Canadian connection. There's a woman named Rihanna, and she is the grandmother who is a super fan of Harry Styles. Her granddaughter caught her talking about Harry Styles, made a TikTok that went viral. So she was in this Grammys video talking up Harry Styles' chances and saying he is the best. He's like the new Elvis. Well, when it came time to announce that very important award, the host, Trevor Noah, gave the envelope to the Canadian grandma, who is a major Harry Styles fan. Take a look for yourself.
You can read it.
Harry Styles!
Gosh, a lot of positive vibes. You almost get chills watching some of these moments. And the Grammys haven't always been super positive. How did this year's show stack up as a whole compared to previous ones?
Yeah, it's interesting, Anita, and Grammys haven't always had a great relationship with black musicians and certainly the hip-hop community, but I did an amazing thing last night, and this shows you the power of the Grammys organization. They basically curated 50 years of hip-hop history with one remarkable performance on stage. It was the percussion maestro, Questlove, who organized this, produced this segment, and you saw, I mean, Public Enemy, one of my favorites, a little bit of hip-hop history. You saw Busta Rhymes basically breaking the sound barrier, so many beats and bars per minute, Queen Latifah, Missy Elliott, Lil Uzi, and more. So it was, I think, a wonderful example of the rich history of hip-hop and what Grammys can do when they kind of put their mind to it as an organization.
No kidding, and everyone there up on their feet, dancing away.
Yeah.
Eli Glasner in Toronto, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
As Eli just mentioned, a grandmother from Sudbury, Ontario, who is also a Harry Styles stan, got the experience of a lifetime yesterday, and she spoke to the CBC about that experience today.
But he was just holding me, and he was so warm, and I looked in his eyes, and he was like I said, you so deserve this, Harry. Enjoy it. You so deserve this. It was a priceless.
Renee Granell caught the attention of the Grammys team after her daughter posted a video of her singing the actor's praises on TikTok. Yeah, you saw her and Eli's footage there up on stage. She took her time making that announcement. I'm sure there was a bit of shock. I think anybody would be shocked, but she says it's actually because she wasn't wearing her glasses. So way to bring the drama. That is a moment she'll never forget. That is it for CBC Vancouver News tonight. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.